In the deep silence of Botswana's wilderness, where the air burns dry and the horizon sways under waves of heat, legends are not born, they rise, claw by claw, from dust and blood. It was in this brutal stage of nature, in the heart of Savuti, that a lion would emerge unlike any other. Not born into glory, but into hardship. His name would be whispered later in awe and in fear. Sekekama. He was not the first to rule, nor the most visible. He did not appear in glossy documentaries, nor bask in the praise of tourists with cameras. His early days were marked by hunger, exile, and the suffocating loneliness of a cub without a coalition. Unlike Scarface, the lion of fame and flash, Sekekama's rise was unseen by the world, but carved into the land by force. Where the land cracked and prey vanished, he endured. Where others fell, he sharpened his fury. Born in the shadows of the Kalahari winds, Sakama was destined not for admiration, but for domination. He rose in a world where mercy was weakness, and only the ruthless survived. He did not seek to be a symbol. He became something more terrifying, a king forged in fire and silence, with no equal and no witnesses. Nature remembers. The dust keeps track of blood. The trees whisper of battles no one saw. And the lions who survived him, those few, who dared carried wounds, not just on their bodies, but in the depth of their pride. He ruled not by inheritance, but by conquest. Not with fame, but with fear. This is not the tale of a hero. It is the rise of a colossus. It is the true story of Sekekama, the lion that even time could not tame. Before Sekekama could rule, he had to survive not just the land, but his own blood. Born into a small pride near the dry edges of Savuti marsh, his earliest companion was his brother, Torn Nose. The bond between them was not one of affection, but of necessity. Where one lacked courage, the other overflowed with wrath. Torn Nose, fearful and submissive, would never lead. He followed Sekekama, not out of loyalty, but out of fear. Their pride was modest, surrounded by stronger coalitions. Prey was scarce. Droughts came hard, and when they did, it was Sekekama who stood at the center of every fight for food, every chase, every kill. He learned early that he could not rely on anyone. The survival of the pride was never guaranteed. And in that chaos, Sekekama began to change. He fought not just to feed, but to dominate. Even as a young lion, he challenged rivals twice his age. Torn Nose often ran from battles, retreating into the bush. Sekekama stayed and bled and won. He began to take land from weaker males, driving them into exile. His eyes held no kindness, no brotherhood, only calculation. Where other lions roared to signal power, Sekekama moved in silence and struck without warning. One by one, he claimed hunting grounds, water access, and mating rights. His body grew massive, his mane thickened like a crown of thorns. The guides began to take note, calling him the Silent Storm long before they knew his name. But Sekekama didn't want recognition. wanted rule. As his power expanded, so did his standards. Not every lioness was worthy of his pride. He rejected those who showed fear, including Satao, the once celebrated queen of the Northern Pride. She would later become his rival, but in this phase of his life, she was simply another weakness to cut away. With only torn nose at his side, and not even as an equal, Sekekama began to shape a domain. He did not inherit territory. He took it. And he made sure the savannah remembered his scent. By the time other lions realized what he had become, it was already too late. Sekekama was no longer just a lion. It was a presence, a force that bent the wild to his will. If you're enjoying the story, hit the like button and leave a comment sharing what has impressed you the most so far. Your support helps this content reach more people who love wildlife. Power, for most lions, is temporary, a moment of strength before another challenger arrives. For Sekekama, it was different. Power was not something to protect, it was something to expand. In his prime, Sekekama ruled over a vast stretch of Savuti. His territory covered riverbeds, hunting plains, and hidden valleys where the brush grew tall and full of danger. No lion dared cross his borders without risking blood. He wasn't just feared by outsiders, he was feared by his own pride. Sekekama built an empire not on alliances, but on dominance. His word was law, his judgment final. And among all the lionesses in his pride, there was one who stood beside him, not as his equal, but as his chosen queen, Matsume. She was fierce, dominant over the other females, and the only one Sekekama truly accepted at his side. With her, he created a royal bloodline, but even within his own family, there was no safety. Sekekama fathered many cubs. Some grew into strong young males, others faded into the background. But strength alone was not enough. One of his sons, bold, reckless, attempted to assert himself by approaching Matsume during her fertile cycle. In another pride, this might have passed as a sign of maturity, of succession. But with Sekekama, it was treason. He did not roar, he did not hesitate. He struck with terrifying speed, snapping the spine of his own son in full view of the pride. The body lay still under the sun as a message. There is only one king. The other sons looked on in silence, understanding the rules with bone-deep clarity. There would be no shared rule, no divided crown. That moment shattered whatever illusion remained of Sekekama as just another dominant male. It crossed into something else, the realm of tyrants, of legends, of beings too powerful to be challenged without consequence. He defended his lands not only from lions, but from packs of hyenas, sometimes dozens at a time. One infamous night, a clan threatened his pride's cubs while he was alone. He didn't retreat, he attacked. Half the clan didn't survive the encounter, but unlike Scarface, whose fame grew through the lens of cameras and whispered admiration, Sekekama's legend was built in silence, passed from ranger to ranger, track to track. He never sought glory. He was its definition. Even the other dominant lions of the region avoided him. Lone males kept their distance. Coalitions altered their migration paths. His mere presence reshaped the ecosystem's hierarchy. And yet, the weight of his rule began to carve cracks into the foundation. Power breeds resentment, especially in those born beneath its shadow. His sons watched. They remembered. They grew. And deep in the corners of the savannah, far from their father's brutal stare, they began to plan. Time, even when it moves slowly, always wins. Sekekama grew older, his mane grayed, his muscles stiffened. The long patrols he once walked with pride became shorter, heavier. He limped from old battles, scars reopened by the cold nights of Savuti. Yet still, no lion dared to face him directly. His eyes burned with the same fury. His mind remained sharp. His silence, even in age, commanded obedience. But power creates ghosts, and they never stay buried. His sons had grown into strong lions, 3 of them, all survivors of his brutal legacy. They had once watched their brother fall beneath their father's claws. They had once bowed in fear, but now they stood taller. They formed their own coalition, bonded not by loyalty, but by a shared purpose, to end the reign of the king who had ruled even their blood. They knew they could not defeat Sekekama alone, not one by one, but together, with cunning and patience, they could outlast the colossus. They tracked him for days, waiting. They used distractions, chased his pride, pulled him away from water and rest. Each encounter was calculated, weakening him without direct conflict. Sekekama sensed the change, but refused to retreat. He had never run, and would not start now. Then came the final day. Under a heavy sky, one sun appeared first, alone, provoking, circling. Sekekama responded, slow but deliberate. He gave chase, unaware that 2 others flanked him from the brush. When the ambush began, it was not with honor, it was with silence. A coordinated strike, from behind and both sides. The ground shook as they clashed. Sakama roared louder than he had in years. He fought like a dying star, violent, defiant, brilliant. His claws tore through one son's shoulder, crushing bone. Another lion yelped in pain, driven back by a blow to the face. Sekekama's jaws found the throat of the third. Blood filled the dust. One of them would not walk away, but neither would. He, outnumbered and already exhausted Sekekama, finally fell not to a rival, but to his own lineage. His body, once the embodiment of dominance, lay still. The savannah did not celebrate. It simply watched, as it had for years, without judgment.
The
Sons stood over his body, not in triumph, but in silence. They had won and lost something far greater. Not just a father, a force, a shadow. A ruler whose absence would echo louder than his roar. The colossus was gone, but his myth had just begun. Sekekama died like he lived, surrounded by fear. Silence and blood. But legends do not rot. They settle in the land like old bones beneath the acacia trees. His scent may have vanished from the wind, his growl no longer carried across the marshes, but his presence lingers in the eyes of those who still walk his old kingdom. The trails he once marked are now ghost lines. The water holes he once claimed are still avoided by those who remember. He is not a lion remembered for fame. He was never a king of the cameras, nor a prince of documentaries. His name, unlike Scarface, was never printed in magazines. But among rangers, trackers, and those who live with the pulse of the wild Sekekamas. Name is spoken like a spell. Notch ruled with legacy. Scarface ruled with charisma. But Sekekama ruled with force, and left behind a dynasty shaped in terror and respect. His sons may have taken his life, but not his throne. No one has ever ruled as he did. The dust may forget his body, but the savannah will forever remember his shadow.